All right, well, thank you for that. And we have now Johnathan in Dallas, Texas, who wants to explain why we should believe in God. You're on with Jen and Tracie.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Johnathan.
So I'm a believer. I believe in God, and I choose to believe in God. The question I have is, what makes my choice to believe in God an inherently inferior position to a non-believer?
Well, why do you think you made a choice to believe in God?
Well, I suffered a lot, went to doctors, went to psychologists, looked to other people to help. Nothing worked. So I said, hey, you know what? I'll try any medicine it takes to not suffer. So I chose to believe, and suffering stopped. So I chose based on my situation.
But belief doesn't actually work that way. So to say that you believe something means
I guess
that you're convinced.
Is it fair to say that you chose to try it, it worked for you, and so you believed it? I mean, would that be fair?
Well, I'm a believer by choice. I don't see how how someone could say, well, you're not really a believer. It's like,
oh, no. I don't think that's what's being implied. Just to be clear, nobody's suggesting that you don't believe or you didn't believe. I think there's a lot of baggage that comes with the word choice, but I think that we can kind of set it aside. Basically, you were having a hard time in life. Nothing was working for you. You turned to God, and then your life got better. Is that about it?
But I wouldn't say nothing was working. I'm very successful in my career academically.
Okay.
But I just felt I suffered. There was something that was missing, and I was told that I was depressed by the medical community. I was given all kind of drugs. And it actually made me feel better. It made me feel different. But then after a while, you develop a tolerance, and then you go back to kind of how you were. You got to build up more medicine. And I said, something's not right about this approach. So I said, let me try a different medicine. I'm willing to try anything. Even if it's believing in God, if that's the medicine I have to take, I will try that because I'm suffering.
Okay.
I tried that medicine. I haven't taken prescription pills since.
Okay.
This has been 6 months ago, and I was told that I need those things.
6 months. So I'm glad you're feeling good.
Yeah.
Well, to me, that's a miracle because I before that, I had a condition. I was genetically predisposed to be blah, 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 X, Y, and Z. This is what you are. This is what you. But I chose something different, and that changed my trajectory.
Okay.
So I chose belief, and it worked. So my question is, why is choosing to believe? I'm a believer by choice. Why is that inherently inferior to somebody who's an atheist? Because that's what it comes down to. I mean, we can talk about.
Did we ever say that?
Yeah, I don't think that it's inferior. I think that my label would be that there's a certain irrationality to it, right? So I would call it irrational, but I would say that I understand how brains work, and so I understand, based on the culture that we're in and what happened to you, why you adopted the position that you adopt. I get it. It's not rational, but there's certainly emotional and, the way the brain works, reasons why you grabbed onto that. I get it. I guess that's all I'm saying is it's not reasonable, but it makes you feel better. So it makes you feel better.
So let me ask this question because it's unreasonable. I'll even accept the fact that it's irrational.
Okay.
Do you believe the irrationality of my belief? Do you believe that it's inferior to your position?
I don't think inferior is the right. I mean, if you believe that somebody being incorrect about their assessment of what is causing something is inferior to being correct. There's correct and incorrect, but then when you start making judgments, it's up to you. If it inferior? Is it? I wouldn't say it's better to believe things that are incorrect, except. If I'm saying that this doesn't demonstrate a God exists, yeah, I think that's correct. But I think that what you're basically, if you're looking at a situation where your life is going to go in a bad direction if you're not doing this, then I don't know that I would say being wrong is inferior for you, because it might actually, it sounds like it might actually be in your best interest to be wrong. So while in this unique situation and this narrow application, I can kind of see how I would have to, like in making a judgment, you're basically saying, how is this bad? Because it's like my life is better as a result. And I'm saying that I don't think that it justifies a belief in God, but I'm happy that you're doing better. And I certainly wouldn't, say that it would be best if you go back to being dissatisfied and depressed.
Fair enough. I want to go back to the wrong piece because if I said, I believe I can, when I jump off this 10-story building, I can fly.
Yeah, that would
I'll fall down. I might kill myself, but I would definitely hurt myself. Let's take some actions. Let's say pleasure is preferable to pain, life is preferable to death.
Yeah. No, I think what you're doing is actually offering a great example, right? I think what you're saying is great.
So you can say in that example, you are wrong.
Yeah.
Based on all these assumptions, you are wrong. Look, you're hurting, you broke your leg, or you're on your deathbed, you fell.
Right.
So I believe in God that created everything. So I die. What judgment seat are we all sitting at where you can say, hey, you were wrong about that belief in God. Look, you believed and now he doesn't exist. So now you were wrong. So your feelings are hurt. There is no judgment seat. So you could say this is Pascal's wager. I know there's all kind of terms for it, but I want to get to the visceral meaning of it. Me falling off of a building and hurting myself, you can say you're wrong. You shouldn't have believed you can fly. Now look at you.
Well, no, I mean, you're wrong. Wrong isn't about whether you get hurt, right? You could be right about something and still get hurt. I could step up to defend somebody who's, someone's being a bigot to somebody else or trying to hurt somebody else, and I step in and do the right thing and then get my ass kicked, right? So it's like
But I wanted to, I'm sorry to cut you off. I wanted to go back to the belief proposition about I'm wrong for believing that I can jump off of a 10-story building and that I should do that, because we all have assumptions or we all have baseline axioms that we say, if you want to live or you don't want to be in pain, you shouldn't do that. You can prove to me that I'm wrong for believing that I should jump off this building if I like life.
No, there's nothing. Okay, wait. I'm not going to get into the should part of it, right? Because when I'm using wrong, I'm saying if you thought you could fly and you fell to the ground, then you're wrong that you thought you could fly. Whether or not you should or should not jump off a building is another thing. That's an opinion, right? And you're right. At that point, you have to start looking at what is it that the person's trying to accomplish. So that's part of what I was saying when you were trying to get to this inferiority thing, right? So if I'm looking at a situation where you're basically saying, I will do anything to escape this depression, and a belief in God helps me to escape the depression, then I would say that you're wrong about whether or not, you're wrong about thinking that it confirms the existence of a God, but whether or not that is an inferior belief or whether or not that is a bad belief or something you should believe starts to get muddied by the fact that your life is actually improved, right? So now what we're looking at is if you want to judge whether or not that belief is helpful to you, in your case, you're saying, yeah, it was clearly helpful. I was not happy. Now I'm happy. But when you're looking at the building, you're giving a great example of a different context where I can say, not only was your belief wrong, but it's inferior when you utilize the judgments of what the person's goals were, right? So for you, the judgment of whether or not this belief is working for you is kind of up to you. But whether or not it means that a God actually exists, whether or not you're correct in that assumption, is not answered by whether or not you feel better because you believe it.
Yeah, I don't believe my belief confirms God's existence.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page.
So my question is, why isn't the question, what should we do? When we can't know something, I can't know whether or not a God created my existence. I don't know if there was a creator of this existence. I don't know. I can't step outside of this dimension. I'm in the third dimension. So why should I not believe? I'm not talking about proving that God exists outside of this dimension. Why should I not believe? Because atheism and theism is about believing.
I'm going to say, but I'm going to say that if there is a risk that your life would be worse if you stopped believing, right? Like if, for example, what if you were calling the show and you said, I was suicidal, and now I don't feel suicidal anymore because I believe in a God that loves me. And you're asking me, would I want to strip you of that belief knowing that you might go back to being suicidal? My answer would be, I might take the next call and let you keep believing.
I'm not going to commit suicide. This is not
I'm not saying that you are. I'm trying to use a clear example. So if you're telling me that your life was not good previously, you were not a happy person. You had stuff going on that you were not satisfied with. It. You were at a point where you literally said at the beginning of the call something like, I was willing to try anything. I mean, that's pretty desperate language. I'm not saying you were suicidal, but I'm saying you were at a point where you were kind of at your wit's end with this stuff. And then you found something and you're saying, I feel better. And now you're saying, why shouldn't I use this? And it's almost like, what if you care, like Dumbo with the feather, right? If Dumbo thinks carrying the feather around is what's doing it, and he can't do it without that feather, then by all means carry the feather, right? But
do you think looking at genetics and epigenetics that my choice could then change my nature? So it's not about.
I don't know. Well, that's outside my pay grade.
But hold on for a second. It's not just about feeling better, because feeling better would just mean I feel better, but I'm still doing the same things, but I feel better. Chemically, my body doesn't require the same chemicals.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't speak to that. I'm not your doctor. I don't have your test results. I can't speak to that.
So outside of my personal story, because I don't want to go down to my story and say, well, this is your story. I don't want to harm your story. That was just a backdrop for you asking me a question. The real question I have, it might be a philosophical question, is for anybody, why, if I can't prove that God exists, you can't prove that God exists, this question has been going on for millennia. We're not going to solve it here. So the question to me is, why should I not believe? So I believe. So all
right, I understand where you're coming from. I understand.
Why should I not?
I get you. All right. So here's what I would say. What we look at when we're doing the show, we are not looking at individual examples. All right. So what we just looked at were two very specific examples of somebody whose life was in a quagmire of depression that now is feeling better, and somebody that was going to jump off a building and then they ended up hurting themselves. Do you agree? And you may not, so I'm asking, do you agree that in general, it's better to believe things that comport with reality than things that do not? That things will be better in your life if you actually make informed decisions that are most likely to be true?
Yes, given one condition, given that it can be examined.
Well, so, I mean, but if it can't be examined, would you have a position on it? Why would you have a position at all?
You should choose to believe whatever is the best outcome in your mind.
So if somebody chooses to believe, for example, black people are inferior, they don't have evidence for that, and they're going to argue about it, and they're going to pull their studies that are like their pet studies or whatever. Is that a problem?
What are they doing because of that? My choice to believe in God doesn't. I'm not saying anybody is inferior. Or I'm making a position on my belief in God.
I'm looking at what you were saying about the idea of what if
people are inferior and then they go and try to persecute me. I don't care about their belief. I care about the fact that they're trying to persecute me. That is wrong.
Okay, so then so then to you, even if something can't be examined, it's not okay to believe it without looking at what the consequences are to that.
Right, you can't. There's laws. You can't go hurt somebody because of your belief.
Okay, no, I agree.
Contained within. If this is my belief, this is my belief.
Okay, so
I'm not touching anybody else.
Let's say that somebody believes that aliens are abducting them. All right, I believe aliens are coming in a couple times a month and abducting me, and I live in fear. And I have children, and I'm talking to them about these scary aliens, and they're starting to have nightmares, and I can't prove it because these aliens are really tricky. Right? I mean, they don't leave any evidence. They're like basically knocking everybody out while they abduct me and do all these horrible things to me. I can't prove it, but should I believe this?
No, you should not, because that belief is causing you fear and causing you harm. Because if you're in fear, you're in constant terror. You should not believe something that gives you terror.
Okay, so
I have agency, so I want to believe something that's not going to give me terror. That's my agency to do that.
Okay, so
I'm not going to be an agent of my own terror.
Right.
Doesn't make any sense.
But let me just make sure we're on the same page here. So what you're saying is that if something can be examined and a decision can be made that is evidence-based and informed, then you think it's best to believe what's true. That would be the first stage.
If I can examine it, if I can touch it, if I can examine it, I dang well better examine it.
And then your position is if you can't examine something and you can't know whether it's true or not, that it's cool to go ahead and just believe it whether it's true or not, as long as it serves you in some capacity in your life.
As long as it serves you for good.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean.
Yes. But I would bring up the terror instance because somebody being terrorized doesn't serve them for good, so they shouldn't believe something that's going to have a negative impact.
Okay, now
if something serves me for good, then I definitely
So belief in God serves you, and you can't really examine the question, and your philosophy is that I don't know, but it serves me, so I'm going to kind of hold it tentatively as true. Right?
I'm going to choose. No, not hold it tentatively. I'm going to choose to believe it.
Okay, so you're taking it as true. I was just trying to be fair.
I know. I don't want to tiptoe around the tulips. God, for me, that was something that was for me. It was good for me. I'm not going to just say I'm going to withhold it. I actually, because I can't examine God,
that's all right.
I choose to believe it.
Okay, so you're saying that you accept it as true, despite the fact that it cannot be determined as true or not true, right? Because it helps
Correct.
you.
I couldn't examine it beforehand, put it that way.
Well, you can't examine it now either. All you can say is your life is better as a result.
So yeah, I can examine what's in the wake. I can examine my life in the wake.
Yeah, we're on the same page.
So,
yeah, we're on the same page. So now you're calling an atheist show and you're saying, so what's the harm here, right? So what is the harm? We're looking at this as, like I said, not on an individual level. I will definitely say that there are exceptions to things, right? I'm not so black and white in my thinking that I can't understand nuances. Like we were talking earlier about whether or not people who are in the Methodist Church who want to support gay people should leave now that the Methodist Church has said we don't support gay people. And one of the things we said was that when you look at it from the perspective of a pastor who's staying in the church to help these kids, kids that are gay, you suddenly realize, like, wow, this person is staying in a church that is now anti-gay for good reasons. Right? So it's easy to say, like, everybody should leave because they're just, gay haters now. But now I've heard, this story from somebody saying, I like gay people and I support gay people and this is why I'm staying. So they give a nuance to it, right? And what you're saying is, hey, there are individual stories where this belief in God helps somebody, like my story, and so what's the problem? But we're doing more of a public outreach, like public broadcasting, and we're looking at this in a large, general situation here, right? So your individual case notwithstanding, will you agree that there's a broader context that religion exists in as well, that is a larger social dialogue?
Yeah, I agree. There is a larger social dialogue. But the one thing that I would say is that the larger social dialogue is made up of a bunch of individuals like me.
Right. But here's the thing. You're right. You're right. They are individuals. But a lot of those individuals don't have your perspective on this. And they believe that it's true that a God exists and God wants them to do some really vicious things to other people in society. And they are pursuing that through the law, right? I mean, we see this.
So that's where I would disagree slightly. There are people who do that, but I would argue that all belief in God stems from the root of what I'm saying. This is the root of it. Now, as we get to the peripheral and ancillary things, people start using that to do atrocities and to believe other things. But if you get to the root of why anybody believes, it is what I just said.
Wait a minute. I'm willing to allow you to own your comments about your own life and your own thinking. I'm not willing to let you say that everybody believes in God for the same reasons you do. I don't agree with that, and I don't think you have the authority to make that statement about other people. What I mean is, like, we talk about faith. When I say my choice to believe is the equivalent of saying faith. So people who, let's just be honest, nobody is going out into the science lab and examining anything. The reason why atheists can shoot down arguments because the fact of the matter is no theist is bringing forth tangible evidence. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So I'm trying to answer your question though, right? So what I'm trying to get to is why. Why you're saying, like, well, why do you say this? And I'm saying, because there are people, you said that if a person believes a thing and it's causing harm to themselves or others, that, yeah, you think that's wrong and that probably should be stopped, right? We agree with that. And I'm saying that there's a lot of people that believe in God that are doing a crap load of harm, not just on the whole planet, but here in the United States especially. There are a lot of politically active Christians who are, like, violating the rights of women, violating the rights of gays, who are trying to, just promote horrendous policy decisions and infect the laws with their religion. They're trying to oppress people religiously and to put their religion into areas of the public where it doesn't belong. These are people who aren't like you, right? These are people that are not saying, this is a personal thing, it works for me, what's your problem? These are people who are saying, I'm going to take my religion and I'm going to take my belief in God and I am going to hammer everybody who disagrees with me over the head using the law, right? They do that.
Right what you just said. They took their belief and said, I'm going to take it and do this other thing.
Yes, they do.
So that's what I'm saying. They're taking what I have, and then they're saying, I'm going to make choice number 2. Action 1, believe. action 2, now I'm going to take that belief and persecute.
Yes.
Right.
So what I'm saying is we're not on the same page with their persecution. What I'm saying, the root of their action 1 is all the same. I'm going to believe. Now they're saying, okay, now I got
right.
No, you're on the same page
okay.
here.
We agree with you, Johnathan. We agree with you. Right here on the show, people have called in and say, "Why do you care whether I believe in God or not? Why do you care if someone believes in God?" And we say we wouldn't care any more about your belief in God than belief in Bigfoot if you weren't trying to push it on us in the legal arena. So the fact is, if everybody on the earth that believed in God was like you, this show wouldn't exist.
Amen.
Yeah, amen. We're on the same page.
Amen.
Yeah.
So do you think it's inherent belief in God automatically makes you more susceptible to persecute, or do you think atheists or people who, let's just say
no, I don't think it makes you more I think here's the thing. People will persecute when they believe they're authorized to persecute. Yeah, it's nice. I will say there may be, and I don't know that this is a fact, but there could be an extra oomph to thinking the creator of the universe wants you to go do some horrific thing, but you can also do a horrific thing because you think the king wants you to go do a horrific thing.
Or just that you think you're entitled to do a certain thing.
Or your lover wants you to kill her spouse. You know, I mean, it's like you can do horrible things because somebody asks you to do them, whether they're a god or not. So I'll grant you that.
I think we're on the same page.
I do too.
And if theists, the people who believed in God, would believe what I believe, I think that would allow other people, like atheists who said, I don't want any part of God. Because if you think about it, if somebody promotes God and they're going out and they're doing all these things, even a child can see there's something wrong with that.
You would think, except lots of adults are still doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I think that if we didn't have the political stuff happening, if it wasn't so oppressive, if some people in religions weren't doing such horrible things, there might still be conversations about, is this reasonable, is this not? But it certainly wouldn't be prompting, like I said, atheist communities and atheist programming. And there just wouldn't be this. This is a pushback against a push, right? Like there's religious intrusion. And it's not just atheists that see it. A lot of times religious minorities bring lawsuits because they're oppressed by like a privileged religious majority. So it's not just atheists who have an issue and see the benefit, I guess, to freedom of religion. And that's another thing. We actually, as atheists, support, in the ACA, freedom of religion. We want you to have the freedom to exercise and to believe and to do what you want. We're fine having conversations about it. We're not trying to infringe on anybody's beliefs. Right. And the people that want to infringe, I would love to get better figures, but I think it's a minority of Christians actually in the United States that are doing this. I don't think I think most Christians really aren't that politically motivated. I think they're kind of just doing their own thing. Or some of them are even out there doing good. And if they were all doing that, I think we'd be like, yeah, Christianity's kind of benign. Belief in God is kind of benign. It's the people that don't treat it like benign that are the problem and that are creating the problem here.
Right. I agree. Believers need to do a better job.
They do. And I mean, maybe people like you can help them do a better job. Like maybe tell your story to other people that are being political, that are being haters, that are being oppressive, and just say like, hey, you're the whole reason that atheists get pissed off. Feel free to tell them. Tracie said that. Yeah, call their shows and ask them why they're doing bad things.
I'll do that. One more question. I don't want to hold up too much time. Just one more question.
Sure.
So the being oppressive, I don't believe in proselytizing. So I believe the best witness is for me to say what I'm saying, but then to go do it and not have to explain myself. If somebody saw what I was doing, that's the best witness.
Yeah, live a good life, right? Yeah, live a good life.
So the question I have is, do you think that secularism now does kind of the same thing that they accuse religions of doing? When you're talking about, you're looking at the transgender movement and kids being mutilated. Kids get mutilated with circumcision, but then now you're talking about kids getting their organs changed at young ages. And
I'm not sure that children are allowed to have surgery, right?
Children are not getting surgery.
There's several instances where kids under the age of 18 and definitely under the age of 14 and definitely under the age of 18 have been influenced to adapt or to believe that there are different sects. Because
Oh, now wait a minute.
No, wait a minute now.
Now we just
Parents
finished saying that as
believe-
long as you're not a hater and as long as your religion
Yeah.
isn't getting you to like impose on other people,
Well, I'm
and
not-
now we're going down the what's wrong with transgender people?
No, I'm not hating. I'm saying, do you think that's like just like religions can impose? Do you think that's imposition?
I think if you can choose your belief in God, that kid can choose their gender, right? And I
Yeah.
wouldn't call that any more a choice, to be fair. But I mean, if
Yeah.
that kid, if that kid is born with a penis and says, I think I'm a girl, I feel like a girl, and I want to be called her
Yeah.
and she, then I'm going to call that child her and she, and that's a girl. And if Jim wants to be Stacy, then Jim is Stacy, and I got no problem with that. That's not up to me.
Okay.
Just like what you're
and what-
saying, if they're not imposing on me, they're not imposing on me. If you want to get into like kids and surgery, that's another discussion. I'm not that up on children getting
kids aren't-
surgery, but
Aren't getting surgery.
but still, I think in general, I support transsexuality, and I want to, trans women are women, trans men are men. I'm down with that.
Okay.
All right.
Fair enough.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
Woo.